Volcano Chapter 3 Survivors and Colonizers. In early summer of 1980, the north side of Mount St. Helens looked like the surface of the moon, gray and lifeless. The slopes were buried under mud, ground-up rock, pumice, and bits of trees. Ash covered everything with a thick crust. The eruption had set off thunderstorms that wet the falling ash. The ash became goo that hardened into a crust. The slopes looked like a place where nothing could be alive or ever live again. Yet, life was there. With the coming of warm weather, touches of green appeared among the grays and browns. They were greens of plants that had survived the force of the heat of the eruption. Some plants had still been buried under the snows of winter on May 18. Huckleberry and trillium sprang up among the fallen forest trees. So did young silver firs and mountain hemlocks. In other places, where the snow had melted, the blast swept away parts of plants that were above ground. But roots, bulbs, and stems remained alive underground. They sprouted, and hardy shoots pushed up through the pumice and ash. Among these was fireweed, one of the first plants to appear after a fire. A few plants were even growing in the blocks of soil that had been lifted from one place and dropped in another. Some small animals had also survived under the snowpack or below the ground. There were chipmunks, white-footed deer mice, and red squirrels. There were pocket gophers, small rodents that carry food in fur-lined pockets in their cheeks. Ants survived underground. So did eggs laid by insects. Many other small animals, such as springtails and mites, lived through the eruption in their homes of rotting logs. Snow and ice still covered a few lakes on May 18. Here, fish, frogs, salamanders, crayfish, snakes, and water insects were alive on May 19. Natural scientists also found more kinds of bacteria than they could name, and they found fungi, which are sometimes called very simple plants. Fungi lack the green coloring matter called chlorophyll and cannot make their own food, as green plants do. They take their nourishment from other living things or from once living things, like rotten wood. Fungi can reproduce in several ways. One is by making spores, which are as small as specks of dust. Fungus spores are everywhere. When conditions are right for them, they sprout and grow. In the summer of 1980, scientists at Mount St. Helens saw fire fungi, which often appears after forest fires. Their spores need great heat to sprout. Both fungus and bacteria are very light and can travel thousands of miles on the wind, so no one could really tell which were survivors and which were colonizers. But even in that first summer, scientists could see many other colonizers arriving. The earliest came by air. Light seeds of willow and cottonwood blew in. Insects blew or flew in. And then there were the spiders, which ballooned in. Many kinds of young spiders spin threads of silk that remain attached to their bodies. When the wind catches these threads, it lifts the spiders into the air and carries them for miles. The scientists also saw animal visitors. Birds flew in, coyotes, elk, deer, and other large mammals passed through, perhaps looking for food and water. The first summer, there were not many plants and animals on the north slope, but there was a wide variety. So natural scientists were able to start studying the links among these forms of life, for no living thing exists all by itself. Each is linked to another living thing and to its surroundings. All need food and places to live. Scientists knew, for example, that over a year or so, the crust of ash would break up and wash away. But they saw important small changes taking place in the summer of 1980. There were areas where snow lay under the ash. When the warmth of summer melted the snow, it no longer supported the ash. The ash slumped and broke up. Here, surviving roots could send up shoots. Heavy rain sent water running down the slopes. The water cut channels in the ash. Here, too, roots could send up shoots. Deer and elk wandered through. They fed on some of the plants, but their sharp hooves broke up more of the ash. Like other animal visitors, they brought in seeds. Some seeds had stuck to their coats. Others were in their droppings. Hoof prints and broken ash made places that trapped seeds. They made places where seeds could sprout and get their roots in the soil. They made places where plants could grow.